Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. It's going to be such a fun one today because today I'm ranking all of my Oden palettes. Now Oden is probably my top favorite brand as far as formula, color stories, packaging, and I have a decent collection of Oden palettes. I'm also doing this video with a friend here on YouTube. Her name is Jessi Ruiz. I'm going to link all of her information down below in the description box, her Instagram, her YouTube, and also her video for today ranking our Oden palettes. So let's dive in because this is going to be a good time. If you guys haven't checked out Jessi's channel, be sure to check the links below. I think I first found her channel when I was looking up project panning. I never personally got much into project panning, but Jessi has a lot of content on that. You know, she's always working on several projects at a time. She just posted her 2024 project panning plan, and she also has some great tutorials. She does an amazing winged eyeliner, lots of colorful eyeshadow looks, especially loves pink, especially loves green. I recommend you check out her channel for some really fun videos. So let's talk about Oden now because I really like Oden. I know that it's not the favorite brand of everyone, but I personally really like their formula. I like their mattes that you sort of place them and then gently buff out the edges. I love their shimmers. Actually, the look that I'm wearing now is an Oden palette that's going to show up later in today's video. The palette itself, not the look. I did film today's look, and that is also linked down below in the description box if you want to see it. Now, I have to put in the disclaimer about this ranking because just like every ranking, it is subjective to your preferences at the time. You know, maybe right now I'm getting more into neutral eyeshadow and therefore the colorful palettes could rank lower. But that's not how it's always been. And then in a year, perhaps I'd be feeling more colorful and the neutral palettes would rank lower. And it's really fun to do these rankings every now and then because I can go back and see how I've ranked the same palettes in a different season of life, and maybe they're the same, maybe it's different. Either way, it's a good time. And I also have one or two new palettes in my collection, I think. I'm very careful to curate my collection, so I don't bring in a lot, but I do think that this ranking is slightly different from my last one. So let's just dive right in. We're going to start at the bottom with the Planet Spirit palette. This was part of their second iteration of Legendary Diversa last year when they collaborated with 3 content creators here on YouTube. This was the palette with Betty Jean or Batty Bean. I like this palette. I don't love it. I do like it a lot. I think the colors are beautiful, really, really bright and vivid. It's lovely, honestly. My qualm with this palette is that I feel like it's incomplete. I would like a little bit more depth and a little bit more lightness in the mattes. So I wish that maybe one color family had been kept out and instead added in a bit of depth that we could use to create contrast in the looks. The multi-chrome over here has hard panned a little bit on me. I need to try, is there a tip to use like Scotch tape to fix hard pan? I have to look into that. But anyway, it is still really pretty. It's a very iridescent white pink sort of color. The palette's beautiful and it does perform exactly as I would expect. It's just a color story. It's not my favorite. Next up, we have one of their newer releases, the Stone and Rock from Nords Divine, I think was the name of this collection. This is one of the most neutral palettes that Oden has ever put out, and I actually waited quite a while before I got this one because I wasn't totally sure if it would suit me really well, and more specifically, I have the Glamlight Dirty Martini palette, which is quite comparable. Now, I did an entire video comparing those two palettes side by side, live swatching and everything to see how close they actually were, and I actually found more differences than I expected. Anyway, this palette's really pretty. It's a very neutral green palette, so it does have green tones, but they're kind of grungy and swampy. Much more downplayed. There's no vivid green in here. And the shimmers are beautiful, the mattes are beautiful, the performance is really nice. It's just a matter of the tones. It's quieter, it's softer, maybe a bit more work appropriate. The reason this one's much lower on the list is because I don't think that these colors do a lot for my eye color, and I just don't tend to reach into it. It's not a go-to palette, you know? If I want these tones, it's a great fit for that, but it's not something that I get really excited to use. It's more like if I want a more quiet, subtle, earthy kind of look, then I'll dip into Stone and Rock. The counterpart of Stone and Rock is the Jewels and Gem palette. I always think it's Jewels and Gems, but it's not, it's singular. This one I think is actually a little bit prettier. Like I said, Stone and Rock is grungy and swampy. This is a bit more soft and feminine. This reminds me of a very mature Disney princess. Like, it's got the pinky, purpley, mauvey kinds of tones, but not too bright. It's kind of like, I don't know, Sleeping Beauty, you know, Aurora when she's 50 or 60. I really, really enjoy the undertones of this palette. There's something about this which is very, very flattering. Every time I use this palette, I just enjoy the look. It's not It's not really wild and bright, but it's quiet, it's soft, it's elegant. It makes me think of the Muse palette from Cosmic Beauty because it's just these more subdued, feathery kinds of tones. Nothing really, really vibrant. It's, again, beautiful quality, really nice tones. This one has a good range of depth as well. There's no pastel matte, which I think it would have benefited from, but we do at least have quite a light shimmer. And then again, these more natural, earthy kinds of tones. It's a very neutral sort of, this was part of the Nords Divine collection as well. It was a very neutral collection for Udensai. Generally their eyeshadow is quite a bit more colorful, but I enjoyed that they added this to their lineup because it makes them more appealing to people who might not want the really colorful makeup, but they still get great quality. And again, the only reason that this is falling lower in the ranking is because I do like colorful eyeshadow. I have to admit, I'm pretty surprised at where this next palette fell. This was so hotly sought after for quite some time, myself included. Like, I never expected to have it. And it was actually given to me by one of my friends, and it was such a kind thing for her to do. This is the Christmas Eve palette. When this came out with its counterpart, the Merry Christmas, I only had the money to buy one of them, so I really overanalyzed for quite some time. Went back and forth, this color, how does it compare to other things I have in my collection? Which palette is the most exciting or inspiring to me? Which color story makes me feel creative? And I finally settled on the Merry Christmas palette. But I still had the Christmas Eve in the back of my mind, thinking, you know, it would be nice, it would be so nice to have both of them. They're sisters. They're beautiful together, and there was just something about this 2022 Christmas release which was captivating to so many. Now, a friend of mine, like I said, she gave me this palette and I was so grateful and so excited. I do think it's beautiful. Again, nothing about this ranking would indicate a problem with quality or performance at all. It's simply color story and how I'm feeling in the present. So this palette is falling where it is because on the whole, it is a little bit more duochromatic, maybe trio. You know, it's got blues, it's got purples, it's got yellows, it's got a pop of green, and that's about it. Now, I wish that this palette had a more true purple matte. The only purple matte in here is this one right here, and it's kind of a dusty, plummy mauve sort of tone. It's not a rich royal purple, and it's not a lighter, more pastel. Both of those colors would work beautifully with the blue options that we have. And it's not that this color doesn't work beautifully, it's just that it doesn't bring a lot more color to the table because it's sort of like a brown gray kind of base. And we have two deep blue shades here. Granted, they are very different. This is a really, really dark black, blue, green sort of color, really dark with a hint of green. And then this one over here is a navy. But I wish that there were a true purple matte, either dark or light, just to work with the blues and bring in a new color, because I don't feel that this really brings in a new color. Aside from that, the palette's beautiful. It's only falling where it is because it's a little bit less versatile than the ones that come next. Okay, we have a palette here from my very first time ordering from Udensai. This is the Saga of Freya Cat's Breath palette. Saga of Freya is one of their collections. I think it was one of their earlier collections after they kind of figured out their aesthetic, you know, the pan shapes and sizes and the decor and the feeling of the packaging. I think this was kind of after they had hit their stride, and from here on out everything was so great. I also really appreciate the formula on this one. It should be held like this, but I'm going to hold it like this because the other way annoys me. The formula in this is really nice. Now, this palette has always just been a delight to me. I think it's so well balanced for a simple 9-pan palette. It has some pretty deep matte here, it has light mattes, it's got these two right here which are maybe a little bit close, but they're different, you know. It has a brown over here. You can go more neutral, you can go more colorful, you can mix and match. The shimmers are each quite unique, and strangely enough, all 4 of the shimmers can work no matter what you pair them with. So they'll work together. The cool shimmers will work with the warm tones, the warmer shimmers will work with the cool tones, and vice versa. It's a really, really versatile palette, and I just love a vibrant orange and teal. I think that color story is different and fun, beautifully complementary, and it's just a good time, honestly. So this is the Cat's Breath palette from Saga of Freya, constant source of joy. Now we come to another of the palettes that I got the first time I ordered from Udensai. Here is the Nords palette. This is the older formulation. This palette has been redone in the newer pan size and format, and they upgraded the formula. So I have trouble with a couple of the shades in here, but I expect that the newest release of the palette has fixed those issues. This is such a trippy palette. Honestly, I did a whole week of videos with this palette, and when I finished them, I was struck by how versatile it was, and that's why it's coming above the Christmas Eve. It's really, really varied. There are a ton of different looks that you can get from this, lots of different colors, and yet they all work together in kind of a cohesive way. Really, really beautiful, really interesting. This shade here, Optimism, is the most interesting shade in the palette. In the pan, it looks kind of like a silver, but it actually has some silver, some gold, some purple, some blue. It's unique. And then this shade up here, which the first time I used this palette, before I was more experienced, I thought it was a dud. I was thinking, why is this shade even here? But now that I'm more experienced and I have used the palette, played with it a good deal, I recognize that this shade is actually a perfect transition tone for all of these mattes. I don't know how they did it. I don't know what it is about the undertones that just works. It's not quite warm. It's not quite cool. It's not quite brown. It's not quite white. It's just this weird, a perfect fit. There's a beautiful variety of shimmers. These are duo or multi-chromatic, amazing shift, so pretty. I don't know if you'll be able to see in the mirror, but the shift in those lower shades, you know, we've got blue and purple, then the purple goes purple, silver, green, the green goes kind of into purple a little bit. They're just beautiful. They're just beautiful. So the Nords palette had to go higher than Christmas Eve, even though I think I have more sentiment attached to Christmas Eve because it was part of that limited edition and it was so exciting and somebody gave it to me when she easily could have sold it for a lot. I think that the Nords palette is more versatile. I get more varied looks from Nords palette. This is one palette that I would consider repurchasing in the new formulation, and I don't say that very often. Okay, we are now in the top 3. I had to count that 3 times. I'm like, brain fart. I need to go have lunch. Okay, top 3. In the 3rd spot, I'm putting one of my favorite color stories, honestly. Here is the Hela palette when they first collaborated with Enyel Knyquist. This palette has my favorite eyeshadow color, green. I love playing with green. It's so much fun. And this palette is just, I wanted to support Angelica, but I also love green. And this is a beautiful, versatile, again, very well-balanced palette. Angie knows what she's doing when she's making an eyeshadow palette. It has lightness, it has depth, inner corner highlight, lighter shimmers, nothing's too deep or heavy. We do have a couple darker shades. We can go neutral, we can go colorful, we can go pink, we can go purple, we can go green, we can go brown. There's a lot going on here, and it is really a joy to play with. Now, this palette used to be my top, and then it got dropped down a little bit at a time. The reason it's now landing where it is because I don't look very good in these kinds of yellow-based browns and greens. I like to use them, especially as accent colors or blending out shades or little pops of something interesting, but I don't generally make that the focal point, like the biggest main color of my look, because they can make me look a bit unwell. It's just not the best color for my skin undertones. So even though I love this palette and what it can offer me, and I love green, it's really a matter of the tones of greens that I have to be careful with placement and quantity. It's beautiful, and I have gotten so many lovely looks out of this palette. By the way, I've done a week of Hela and also a week of Christmas Eve. When I do the editing, I'll put that I'll go back to past Rachel and edit it in. But anyway, beautiful palette, lovely formula. Again, this is all a matter of color story because they all perform wonderfully. In the number 2 spot, you probably know what it is. In fact, if you've hung out on my channel at all in recent months, you probably know what the top 3 were, honestly. But number 2, I'm giving to Merry Christmas. Now, this one easily could have been number 1 and vice versa. I'm not even sure. Should I switch them? No. I don't think I'm going to switch them, but I love this. This is so much fun. I did a week of Merry Christmas. I got so many beautiful looks. And as far as my week of videos, I have a whole Oden's Eye playlist, which is linked in my description box. It's not just one week of videos. I have many, many other videos on these palettes outside of the week of, but this palette is still, even after possibly a dozen looks in only this palette, it's so, so inspiring to me. I have no shortage of ideas. There's something very unique and odd and funky about this color story, which I find mesmerizing. Elf Wish up here is a pink, green, gold shift. It's so beautiful. We have some murkier kinds of tones. We have some bright, like, what is this? Like almost a Barbie pink, but it's got blue and it's got purple in it as well. There are some true Christmas tones, red and green. But then we have odd tones of the green. I mean, who would have thought to pair this with anything around it? It's just weird. But when you use them together, the looks are nothing short of beautiful or at the very least interesting, but always beautiful because the formula is amazing. You can go really dark if you want to. You could get like an amazing smoky eye, put this in your crease, this all over your lid, and then top it with that. Oh my goodness, I should do that. I haven't done that. I should do that. It'd be so pretty. You can go a little bit more neutral. You can go more pastel with these tones over here. You can get really, really warm shades. You can get much cooler tones. It is so versatile. I love the Elf Wish shade because it's light enough to be an inner corner highlight. It's going to give you contrast against any of the mattes or the shimmers, even contrast against this matte here, which you would think they're going to blend in. No, because Elf Wish has so much shift in it and it leans multiple different directions, it will transform even a base color like this. This is an amazing palette and I love it. And finally, in spot number 1 is the palette that I used today. That was partly coincidental and partly not. This is the Sea Talk palette when they collaborated with Lauren from Lauren May Beauty. It surprises me a little bit that this has gone above the Merry Christmas palette because since that palette launched, it's been my top Oden's Eye. But this palette is just enchanting to me. It is such a perfect blend of neutral, colorful, warm, cool. It's the sort of tones that I think would be flattering on anybody. There's something about the undertones. They are so appealing. I love the shimmers. For today's look, I did this shimmer all over my lid, and then I put this in the lower inner half of the inner half of the lower lash line. I laid this down on the outer half of the lower lash line. I did a palette pull-in from Sydney Grace, and I just laid that on top of the outer matte. But it's really similar to this shimmer. There's not a huge difference in the colors, so you could absolutely do this look with only this palette. And then obviously the inner corner is Electric Kelp right here. Such a unique color. It's a yellow matte with sparkle, so I guess maybe a satin, but the yellow is not a true yellow. It's not a sunburst or lemon or marigold. It's actually yellow with a hint of green. I don't have anything in my collection that is like Electric Kelp. I absolutely love these shimmers. They are so sparkly. They're my favorite shimmer formula. And this palette is so great because you can go more neutral or quiet if you want to. You can go more cool toned. You can do something warm toned if you like. You can bring in some color. This shade here is an iridescent topper that's actually not as pink as you might think, but pairing it with different things, it's going to pull different directions. You'll get a different look. This is so stinking beautiful. I am slightly surprised that something a little bit smaller and a little bit more neutral leaning than the Merry Christmas ended up bumping it out, but I don't know. Like I said, those two spots, number 1 and 2, easily could have been inverted, again, depending on my mood, but I don't know. I just love Oden's Eye. I think that they do such a great job. They have really figured out what they want to look like as a brand, and that's refreshing because you know what you're going to get. I personally am a big fan. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to check out Jessi's video. I can't wait to see how she ranks all her palettes. She has more than me. It's going to be a great time. I really look forward to seeing what her preferences are right now. Again, it's all subjective and it's all very fluid. This might be a totally different ranking if I were to do it again in 2 or 3 months. I hope you really have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for your time. Remember to comment below. Tell me what your favorite Oden's Eye palette is, if you have any from the brand, what you like about it, what maybe your least favorite is. Do you have any of these palettes, and how would you have ranked them? I appreciate talking to you guys in the comments. I hope you will consider liking and subscribing to mine and Jessi's channels before you go. If you like these videos, stick around because there are more in the works, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!